The Pro Show is brought to you by Rockin' Media and our proprietary Flash HDR photo process, providing you with the best, most realistic photos of your property. See the difference at rockinmedia.com. Hi, and welcome to the Pro Show. I'm Rick Machle. I'm excited about today's show. We're talking about open houses. What are their value in today's age? In addition, the same thing with print material. Is there a value in doing print material today with all the electronic media like websites and videos? In addition, we're talking about the choice you need to make whether you're going to use a real estate agent or do a for sale by owner. And finally, we have a great listing for you to see. That's next on the Pro Show. And today we have another great panel of Coldwell Banker agents from up and down the Front Range. We have Elizabeth Nelson from the Boulder office, and then we have Debbie Haining from the South Metro office, and we have Carrie Holmes from up in Fort Collins in the northern part of Colorado, and then Lori Delaney from the North Metro office. Hello, ladies. And on this week's market report, we have some preliminary numbers for September. These are actual numbers, but they're also numbers that don't include the year over year yet. These are month over month. So these are from September and August, and the median close price is down 2.3% to $576,000. The closed homes are down about 19% to 3,092 sales. And the sales volume is also down to 2.08 billion. That's a 23% decrease month over month. And then the months of inventory is up 21% to 3.6 months. And days on market is up 19% to 25 days in the MLS. We also have active listings up 3.65%, and the new listings is up 1.19%, just a little over 5,000 new listings, and then pending sales are down 3.64% to 3,761. And so what are you thinking are these numbers feel right? I mean, because you're down at the granular level, and of course, real estate is hyper-local. So I believe it was Elizabeth, right, who was saying, yes, I have no listings right now because they're all going under contract right away, right?
Yeah, I've had 5 listings close in the last, 35 days. I will say that it's not 100% tracking with my area, Superior. We are down 16% September over last September on new listings. We are seeing a lot more houses going under contract really quickly within, 24, 48 hours. And although we only had 22 homes in my small little town closed in the last 90 days, we have 12 under contract right now. So it's a good time.
Yeah. Debbie?
To buy and sell right now.
What are you seeing down south Metro?
From the numbers that you've shown, it looks like it's beginning to become a little more of a buyer's market. However, I'm not seeing the homes staying on the market as long as those numbers. I don't think that has really caught up with my area yet.
Or it could be potentially that the ones that are causing the days on market to go up could be that they weren't priced right to begin with. And so people are not coming to terms with where the market is today, correct? And therefore now they're having to, and so they're staying on the market longer. And if you price it right, are you finding then that it's also going under contract?
I agree with that.
Yes?
Sorry to jump in there,
Yeah,
Debbie. I just wanted to throw one caveat about days on market. So a lot of times new construction is calculated on that days on market. And so new construction the builder can put it on the MLS from the day of basically inception of the house, and it might take 6 months, 9 months to build the home. So there is a little bit of caution that I would urge buyers and sellers to think about when they are evaluating days on market.
So it's one of those damn lies statistics type thing. Not really telling the truth, right, Lori?
Good point, Carrie. I agree with that. And also, I think real estate is hyper local, even to the specific neighborhood. And there are just so many variables, like what's the floor plan? For example, in my neighborhood, I have some that are on the market and have been over 100 days and taking price reductions, and they're still not selling, but it's the floor plan. They're bi-level with stairs. And then the ranches seem to be flying off the shelf in 2 days in some cases, even if it's in a $1 million+ neighborhood, or price range. So it just so depends on so many factors that don't be dismayed if you're thinking of selling and you listen to those numbers. They're so aggregate and they compile such an average of the entire city that ask an agent, about your specific neighborhood and what your neighborhood, how long they're staying on the market and what they think your home would be worth and, how long it would take to go under contract based on the floor plan.
That's a good point. So even if I'm saying, well, the market $1 million+ is really slow right now, which I don't know whether it is, that may just be the whole market, and it's not even the city. It's actually the whole metro areas, the numbers we just showed. So it makes a big difference. Carrie, tell me a little bit about what's going on in Weld County and Greeley.
Obviously, we look at northern Colorado, which is my area, and a lot of times we've been talking about Larimer County, which I like to say is west of the interstate,
Okay.
I-25. So now we're going to look at what's east of I-25, kind of more that Greeley area. So active listings are actually down 23.5%. The median price, it does encompass a large area. And so the median price in that Greeley area is $416,000. So I would say it's a little bit more of an affordable area to consider looking at. Year to date, the number of listings sold is actually down 24.1%, which is quite significant. However, when you look at the data, you need to take out January, February, March, because those were all the negative numbers in the year. And if you look at it, listing sales are actually up 10.5% month over month. So those homes are moving, they are selling, and we've seen that increase since April through the rest of the year. And again, we're looking at that average days on market is 58. So homes are staying on the market longer in general, and that's not only a data perspective, but also a realtor localized assessment.
So you're feeling that they are on the market longer?
We are feeling that.
Well, that's interesting, and we'll have a little bit more granularity next week. Hopefully we'll have some comparison also to last year in September, because obviously that can make the difference, because these numbers month to month, we have so many seasonal differences in Colorado as people go back to school, and they're settled between August and September. Let's see how it looks next week as we talk about year over year. Showing your property at its best online is one of the first of many important steps to getting your home sold. At Rocket Media, we provide you with the best quality photos taken by staff photographers, not contractors, who process your photos individually. We use our proprietary Flash HDR process, which combines the natural look of HDR with the color accuracy of Flash, along with properly exposed windows. Rocket Media's HDR process is clearly exceptional. Find out more and schedule online at rocketmedia.com. All right, we're going to do something a little bit different today. We are going to talk about two different marketing options that these agents take advantage of. And a lot of them you've probably heard of because they've been around almost since the beginning of real estate. And the first one are open houses and the value that open houses provide today. And I'm really interested in getting people's feedback because I'm all about the tech. I'm all about photos. I'm all about online media, whether it's videos or Matterports or Zillows. So is there a value in open houses today? Who wants to take this?
I can start.
Sure.
I've done 3 open houses in the last couple months. I always start off my listing with a open house. And the first one I only had a few attendees. I just did one over the weekend, my 3rd one, and we had a whole bunch of groups in there. And it was good because I got a lot of feedback. Most of them were neighbors, which you can expect, but we had quite a bit of people there.
And Lori, what do you think? Are they worth it?
I absolutely advocate for open houses. I think they're very valuable to the potential buyers. They want to get out there, I think, more than ever and kick the tires inside the home. And many of them are working with a realtor, but they just don't want to. Sometimes they don't want to bother their realtor. Sometimes they're in a beginning stage of looking, maybe 6 months to a year out, and they just want to get a pulse of the market. And they're able to talk to the agent who's hosting the open house to just really hear what's going on in the market, answer any specific questions to the home. And I have just found them hugely valuable on both directions. In selling my listings, I usually launch an open house, or right after I launch a listing, I have an open house that following Saturday. And I just feel like it enhances the exposure a bunch.
I also feel the same way. I do open houses for all of my listings, and I recently closed 5 deals on listings, and 4 of them were attendees to my open houses. So that's pretty impressive. All of them had realtors, but, wanted to come in, see it on their own. And, it really helped a lot. I take it a step further on all of my listings. I like to invite all the neighbors and do, I call it a pastry and a peek. And for the first hour, it's exclusive just to the neighborhood. And it tends to bring a little bit more interest into the house. So it also lets people know that there's a home on the market should they have, neighbors or friends that want to move to the neighborhood. So I really enjoy doing the open houses, and I find them very advantageous for my clients.
Carrie?
I don't know if this is a regional difference, but as you all know, I'm up here in northern Colorado. And in my personal opinion, they rarely actually sell the home that is being held open. So, and I don't know if that's a regional difference, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of my sellers. And is this going to be an effective tool to help them get the home sold? Frankly, I personally would rather not kick them out of their house for 3 hours on a Saturday when they got to get the dogs and the kids and the cats and everything boarded up and rolled out of there to hunker down somewhere for 3 hours. Whereas my feeling is if a prospective buyer is interested in this property, they will call their realtor, or if they don't have a realtor, they're going to call me and get information on the property. Then we're going to make sure that they're pre-approved, ready, willing, and able to purchase this home, especially on the higher end. We just don't want a bunch of people trouncing through somebody's home that might not be a serious buyer, especially in that higher price point. We want to be discerning on who is coming through the house.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all find that to be the case? Is that that open houses are more effective on lower end or mid end, mid range?
I disagree. For the last 4 listings that I've had them every price range imaginable, from 600 to $1 million, 1 million. What was it? 21,000, and all of them were equally effective. They all had a ton of traffic. But I advertise a lot on social media, advertise on all of the potential, well-traveled potential buyer websites, and 3 of the 4 were represented but didn't have their agent with them during the open house. And they went under contract with those people that attended the open house. 1 was not represented, and they were from out of California. And what was neat about the open house is they had an opportunity to see it a couple times, actually, before they went back to California. And then I became a transaction broker and represented them. So 1 of them I actually represented of the 4, but all of them had a dozen or more parties through. So I really think they are still, even in this balanced market with more inventory, I just definitely, I agree with Elizabeth. It is highly advantageous to both the buyers and me as the agent in trying to sell the listing for the sellers.
What do you guys do in order to get an open house ready, other than kick them out of their house?
For the weekend, typically.
For the weekend.
Yes, not just a few hours. I urge them to, go take a trip somewhere for the weekend. We ask them to take out all sorts of, firearms, prescription drugs, etc. Just want to be as careful as possible, because to Carrie Holmes' point, you don't know who is coming into that house. So you want to make sure that everything that doesn't walk off. The house has got to be in great condition, cleaned, and just ready. Obviously, all the lights are on, all the blinds are up, sort of like what you do when we have pictures taken. And I have, again, pastries and coffee in the beginning for the private part, and then if there's any left over, that's great for whoever else comes in during the open house.
Yeah, I'll have something that I'll give away to everyone who comes to the open house to kind of maybe differentiate that from the other 3 or 4 they might have seen that day. And I find that they call me back to ask questions, and they were happy that they had something with my information on it. I also have kind of a highlights and features list that I put everything that's happened in the house that they've updated, or some special things about it that they might not notice. So they'll take that. I'm not big on bringing cookies or food, because I've had people spill and things like that. So I don't do that. I have to also mention that sometimes people don't want an open house. Sellers sometimes may say, I don't want people in my house. I don't want my neighbors coming in here. So you respect what they want. And so I don't always do an open house. And I've also had the listing, I call it a listing launch, also before my open house sometimes. And at that, I'll have, snacks. I've had a donut truck one time, and I had a taco bar one time. And so that's good, because that gets all the neighbors together and they talk, and I can get some pointers from them, some feedback, what they know about the house that they've seen, and go, wow, this looks great. So that's always helpful. So there's a couple different things there that I believe.
Yeah. Carrie, do you ever do any?
Again, I'm definitely the devil's advocate here. I find that when my clients go through a property, and even if I'm showing, sometimes we're walking through while an open house is happening, and my clients are just not as comfortable and relaxed as they might be if we're in an actual showing appointment. It helps my buyers to be in that relaxed state of mind and have that opportunity to envision themselves living in that home. And so I think it really benefits them. All of you ladies recall a couple of years ago when we were in the chaos, and there was a lot of open house opportunities, and people were not only lined up at the door waiting to get in, but we had groups of people, and it just gave a sense of chaos. And I don't think that does anybody any favors, especially the listing agent, or excuse me, the sellers, because they might be having this sense of, oh, I've got to compete. Well, that doesn't make for a qualified buyer. We want somebody who's confident and comfortable in their decision and not just buying out of panic and fear that they might lose this home.
So, Carrie, you think that open houses are more for shoppers than buyers?
In my opinion, it is.
Okay. And Lori, go ahead.
I agree. I'm sorry. I agree with Carrie to that point. There are often people who are just coming in and you ask them what brings you in today, and they'll say, well, we just thought we'd look at a couple houses. And, that's always frustrating.
It's an afternoon.
I kind of, every house is different. And so some I think are great for open houses. Some I wouldn't do it, especially if they're on some bigger property. I don't think people come to it as often if they've got it's more difficult. You got to go back or up a hill or something to get to it. So they're all unique.
So my understanding, and maybe this is incorrect, is that, Lori, there's no way to be, like you go on the browser, in your browser, you can go into incognito mode. And right now, can you go into a house and not sign in, or does everybody have to sign in when they come to your open houses?
Well, I actually make everyone sign in, and I ask them to do that because I'm trying to keep track for the sellers, and I am. It's not. That's actually, I give them a full blown summary at the end and let them know how many parties were through, how many interested parties. But let me back up a little bit and talk about I usually have an open house the Saturday after my listing launches. And so they already have the home ready. And that day, that first Saturday after launching a listing is going to be the busiest. So they're not doing anything they wouldn't already do. I just have them go away for 4 hours and come back. And it's usually not a big deal. Unless, they have a dog, then they'll go to the mountains or something. So anyway, they're not doing anything they wouldn't already do. I also don't have an open house for any sellers of mine that don't want people to walk through, but the majority, I would say 80% of my sellers are open to it because they understand it enhances the exposure. And while only 3% of listings sell from open houses, I tend to have a higher number than that because I talk to people, I make them feel very comfortable while they are in the home, answer any of their questions. And I just think I've been given a gift of building a rapport. So that's been effective. And then and I do just have them prepare their home like they would for the day of showings, turn on all the lights, open all the blinds. I do bring cookies because I think it enhances the ability to build rapport with the families that have children. And most of them are really respectful and they won't take them until the end. I serve gluten-free just for those dietary needs, and it makes the home smell wonderful and just kind of sets a mood, if you will. And prior to the open house, I'll knock on 10 doors every direction and invite, the neighbors and have them invite their friends. But honestly, when people come through, I ask them, hey, did you see my open house online, or did you see my signs? Or what brings you in today? And while a handful of neighbors come through, sometimes they have someone who wants to move into the neighborhood, in which case I say, this is your opportunity to pick your neighbors. And then most of the time they find me online because we syndicate out to 900 well-traveled websites, primarily Zillow, Realtor.com, and Redfin. And then I sign it. The signage is super, super important. I use like 12 open house signs. I particularly don't use balloons, but many do. But they find me. I have a big, huge sign out front that's like a parachute sign. And it's like one big party. It's like all these people that are in the market and considering a move come to you. So it's almost like retail for real estate. You know what I mean? Most people that come in, they either have a friend who's moving, they're moving, or their parents are moving. And so I just find it to be a very wonderful thing. Anyway.
Elizabeth, do you find that oh, go ahead, Carrie.
I do have one caveat because I do agree in certain instances, it is important to hold an open house if it's going to be the most convenient for my client. Sometimes we will hold showings until an open house. Let's just say maybe they have a newborn, they have those 5 kids, 6 dogs, etc. And it might actually be easier just to hold all showings, until an open house, let people get in. Like you said, my clients may run to the mountains or spend some time at the park or the library. So in those particular instances, it is advantageous. And that's just on a case by case scenario.
And I think it probably has to do too with, I live in the foothills. So we don't get trick-or-treaters coming up here in the next couple of weeks because we're like all, very separated homes. So, they'd have to walk 20 miles to get 4 pieces of candy. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I assume with open houses, it probably makes a difference too as to where the house is, correct? And that may be why Carrie's not finding as much value to it as opposed to the more condensed areas. I don't know, just throwing it out. Elizabeth, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think it is location based. I did an open house in Superior on Saturday. We had 10 groups come through in just 2 hours, and of which 6 of them had, realtors that weren't with them, but they were represented, or were not. And, it is that time to build rapport and showcase the home to its best. I think it just really seems to resonate. I'm a relational real estate agent. I like to, be able to represent in that way. So sorry, Lori.
I'm sure, honestly, if we had 10 groups through an open house, I would definitely be singing a different song. So I think you're right. Some of it is regional, Rick.
You're just not finding that you get the attendance, and therefore it's a lot of time and people away from their homes for not as many people coming through, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And it probably depends on the market too. We're in a totally different market as, during COVID, as I think it was Lori was talking about, that it was like you had to bunch up and everybody would come in and they get their 3 minutes or 5 minutes and they come through. It was a way to show the house very, very quickly. Debbie's shaking her head. No?
No, I'm just thinking, that was crazy. Those times were crazy, and I felt so bad for buyers having to make a decision, with a 10 or 15 minute showing. Oh, I'm so glad that's over.
And of course, now they can actually shop, and they have time to actually come back and look at the house, even if they see it in the open houses. And of course, some people just use open houses as a way to get out of the house for a Sunday afternoon and take the kids somewhere, kind of cheap entertainment, and treat it like a parade of homes, I guess. Anything else people think? Lori, what are your thoughts?
I have one other thought. One thing I do that has, I think, helped the traffic is I will advertise my open houses only for 2 hours, not 3 or 4. And that has condensed that traffic. Most people show up between 11 and 1, and then it substantially drops off usually after that. But I will stay for as long as I have people. Occasionally there's people from 1 to 2, and I stay until 2. But I guess I say 4 hours because, it takes 4 hours from start to finish, from setup to setting all your signs up and all that. But the open house is only advertised from 11 to 1. And since I've been doing that, I have a condensed audience where I usually have a dozen people through in those 2 hours. And then the other thing is the longer you do this, I've been doing it quite, over a decade, you can really differentiate between those people that are just shoppers and or neighbors and just really curious and not really wanting information or wanting to move. And so I think that takes a little bit of a skill in asking the right questions. And so that's where I just feel like I've honed in on that skill in the last bit. So
one of the things I noticed, or I heard from, I think it was Debbie Jacobs, from she was saying she did an open house, and I believe it was in Lone Tree, and somebody's job is to come and take all the signs and throw them in the trash can. And you're not allowed to put signage out directing people to open houses. So I guess it's dependent on where you're doing the open house. Lori, have you had that?
Yeah, it varies. So it's dictated by like the city, sometimes the county, but usually the city. And there are less friendly cities. I've had signs taken. Usually the signs I have taken are those directional signs where it says home for sale, because cities just don't like that because it goes on for a period of time. Usually what I have found is the cities are really understanding, again, if you have them out there just for 2 hours versus even all day. But generally speaking, I have found the cities, I mean, I work the Northwest corridor, so I'm not down in Lone Tree as often, but they're pretty friendly. If you just have, I think Thornton can be strict, but they allow if it's just a couple of hours. I have had signs, taken if you just kind of don't know what their protocol is and don't abide by them, and they get in the way of people walking or that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because she was saying that she had really good traffic and then all of a sudden it died. Was that you?
That was me.
That was Debbie Haining. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That was me, and it was in Castle Rock.
Okay, well, I got it all wrong.
And I went to pick up my signs, and they were all gone. I had no idea. And the next day, I got a call from a realtor who saw them in a dumpster and sent me a photo. And so my son went over the following, that was about 7:30. So the next morning, my son went over and got my signs. And it was frustrating because they didn't call me. They didn't tell me, what happened. And
So go ahead.
That sounds, that doesn't sound like the city to me. It seems like they would, I don't know. It sounds like more maybe vandalism or something, like some kid doing a prank or something. I don't know.
No, they were actually in the city's maintenance
Wow.
parking lot dumpster.
Note to
And
self.
my client looked it up, and it says that there can be no signs in Castle Rock. I've done a million open houses out there and never had a problem, but this day I did.
Do you find that it sounds like, I think it was Lori who was saying that it's not just an open house. The open house needs to be marketed well for it to be effective. Do you find that to be the case?
Yes.
Yes, everybody's nodding their head. Good.
I agree.
Yeah, that if you just throw up a sign. And are there specific dates that work best? Or days of the week that work best?
Depending on the location, I mean, if you are right outside of an elementary school, I would do it, I would time it so that, a little bit before and a little after the bell rings for everyone to go home. You're right there. But typically I enjoy doing them on a Saturday. I like either 11 to 1 or 12 to 2. And I agree, just a 2-hour window really works well for me.
So having a smaller window versus a bigger window means people have to get there, and it saves everybody's time, the homeowner, yours, and it gives a sense of urgency if they want to see it. Lori?
And I also want to, sorry.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
I also want to put that up on the MLS so it gets syndicated out early in the week so people can plan. A last minute open house is not worth it, for anybody. So, I'm not gonna, if I'm putting a house on the market and I don't have time to get it up there early, I don't want to do it last minute.
Interesting.
I agree. I want to get it advertised by noon on Wednesday because it can take up to 48 hours to syndicate out to all of those well-traveled websites. And let's see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, I never, ever, ever like to compete against the Broncos or CU/CSU games. So I always check, I rarely do an open house on Sunday, try to take Sundays off, but Saturdays, usually, that's why I pick Saturdays usually.
Yeah.
Because I'm competing with the Broncos.
Unless it's right after the 1st of February when the Broncos are done, then
outside of Bronco season.
Exactly. I want to do a quick segue and talk about print materials, which in my mind seem kind of archaic. And where is the value of print materials in these days, whether you're talking brochures or flyers or magazines or newspapers? Are any of those worth pursuing in this market these days? Who wants to?
I really like the listing brochure, the invitations, the trifolds that go out to the neighbors. I do get all of the other stuff, but I don't see as much value. I really like the YouTube advertising and more of the, online advertising. But, the brochures are nice.
Yeah. And do you put them out in front of the house, or do you just keep them in the house?
I keep them in the house. I don't have one of those little plastic things.
Brochure boxes. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Carrie, what do you think?
Well, when I think print advertising, I mainly think of magazines and newspapers. But as far as magazine goes, I think it depends on the property. If I've got some acreage, I might put it in Farmer and Ranch or something. I've even posted them at feed stores. So there's different places that I think it does provide value. But I would say for the most part, it's not an effective tool. It's more for those more unique properties that are possibly going to take a longer time on the market and to get that additional exposure. But I think in the long run, a lot of times that print advertising becomes outdated and the property is sold by the time somebody sees it, which I know that can be frustrating for a home buyer too. They find this great property that you have listed, they call you on it, and unfortunately it's been sold.
And Lori, but print could also include like just listed, right? And just sold.
Right. I actually am an advocate of the just listed postcards. I think these days, I think people are getting less mail. And even if I am in the junk category where they just throw my just listed away, at least they see it come through the mail. They see the home, my face, and if they know of anybody, I just think there's fewer people doing that at other companies outside of Coldwell Banker because they don't have such in-depth marketing programs. So I definitely do a just listed, and I like the trifold also that Elizabeth was talking about. I picked up listings off of it from neighbors that receive this because they like the marketing so well. And I do also really like the glossy 4-page brochures, which that again speaks volumes. I think there's, with the average home being on the market up to 45 days these days in a more balanced market, doesn't always happen like that. Many times my brochures get in after it's under contract. But I think that it's more important now with the home staying on the market than it ever has been as far as print marketing. And then I always send out a just sold, which connects you to people in that surrounding neighborhood. And if you send it to your sphere, which I try to do, so it keeps them up. Not only does it keep them up on what's going on in their neighborhood and values and so forth, but then they know that you're the expert in the neighborhood.
Debbie, how do you use print marketing?
I use as much print marketing as I can. Not that I think it's the most effective tool, but you never know where your buyer's going to come from. So a just listed may hit somebody's house and they are looking for something for a relative or a friend or something. So I do as much print marketing as I can. However, I find that social media and all of the websites that I put everything on and videos I do, I find that that's much more effective. For example, Rick, the videos that you do for me, they go everywhere and I get a lot of response to them. So I'm a little bit of both.
Well, balanced. You got to do everything. Get every buyer that you possibly can and meet them where they're at as opposed to where you want them to be.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You never know where you're going to find them.
And if I'm a homeowner and I say, can you put my house in the Denver Post? What do you tell them? Carrie, well, you wouldn't get it. Okay, what's the Fort Collins newspaper?
The Coloradoan.
Okay, yeah.
There are real estate brokerages that still put their listings in the Coloradoan on a Saturday. So there is still, a market for that for maybe those other brokerages. I don't particularly find that it's going to actually sell the home. And I like to focus all my advertising energy on things that I think are going to actually sell that particular home and not necessarily just be advertising myself. I think that's just a subsequent part of the process of listing and selling a home, but it shouldn't be the primary part of my advertising. So I do agree. I think the just listed postcards are a great opportunity to get that exposure. Even myself as a real estate agent, when I get one of those postcards, I want to see what's happening. I want to see the hottest property on the market. But as far as actual newspaper media, that's not one that I'm currently doing.
So it's more vanity for the agent, perhaps, than the helping to sell the home, at least in your experience, is what you've seen. It's to get
I'm
them
gonna
more
let
business.
that be your words.
That's my words.
Those
Okay.
are your words, Rick.
It's marketing for the agent. Look at all the listings I have, and which is good, I guess. If that's what they want to do, and maybe they get a sale out of it. Any other print ideas that you throw out there when you're talking to a potential homeowner that's looking to sell?
I liked it when we had like 5280 and Colorado Homes and Lifestyles as part of our marketing package. We kind of shifted, and now it's not. Now we have the YouTube videos, and while that's awesome, I really think you have to attack it from several different aspects, and it depending upon who your audience is. I think oftentimes with baby boomers, they may be looking at a newspaper or a magazine. More than on Facebook. Whereas if it's millennials, they might look at Instagram. I mean, so it really varies. But I will say, I do agree with Carrie in that a lot of times some of that printed type marketing in a newspaper or a magazine is more for the agent than for the actual seller. I had a situation when we used to be in 5280 as part of our marketing. Someone picked it. They were actually looking for a home in my neighborhood, and I was the only one that had a listing under 600,000. And so anyway, they called me up and we had lunch, and now they're wonderful clients of mine. So, but yeah, so I picked up a client. I didn't sell that listing. It was about 2 years premature. But so yeah, I do agree that it probably is more for the agent in that realm of print.
To be clear, that was me who said that, not Carrie. Carrie.
Oh, yes, right. So validating you in that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that was just my impression, and I didn't want to put that on Carrie. That's what I was doing. So it appears
We're saying the same things in not so many words, Rick.
But it sounds like there's still a need for print materials out there, whether they're in the home, occasionally online, I mean, in magazines, depending on the property. And then, of course, it sounds like the just listed cards are really valuable that Coldwell Banker provides. And so that's great to know that print still has a place. The dead trees are still being chopped up. And here to give us a little more mortgage advice is Nancy Alexander from Guaranteed Rate. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Rick.
So here's my scenario. I bought my house, I don't know, November, December last year. Interest rates were pretty high, almost 8%. And I've heard they've come way down. How do I decide what rate, at what rate should I try and refinance, or what are some of the items I should think about in doing that?
We like to say, or I like to say, that if you can recoup your costs for your refinance within a year, within 12 months, take the refi. And so let's say you were to save $300 a month from the rate you're currently on, that 8% or 7.75, whatever you got, compared to the 6.25 that's sitting in the marketplace right now. Let's say that's that $300 a month savings, and let's say it costs you $3,600. We'll do easy math and to do the refinance. So those are your fees. So obviously $300 divided into 3,600, you're going to hit exactly your 12-month turn time or your 12-month savings. Take the refinance if that's the scenario.
So are there any other considerations that I need to think about?
There are. You can't refinance, or it's extremely discouraged to refinance within the first 6 months. So, and it's the 6 months period from when you closed on your loan, not when your first payment is. So you said that, let's say November, December, let's call it December. So in turn, you've got January through June, right? You can do your refinance, or could have done your refinance as early as June of this year, hit that 6 month. It's what Fannie and Freddie call churning. If you're doing a refinance sooner than that 6 month window.
Anything else I should consider in that refinance?
I think that whether you're going to take that 30-year and go to a 15-year, if that's something you want to look at, because all rates are down. You may want to do that. Sweetest thing about a 15-year fixed, Rick, you and I have talked about this before. It's literally you are paying more to the principal than what you are to the interest out of the gate. In other words, the first payment you make, more goes to principal than interest. So the 15-year, if you can pay that extra 400, 500, 300, whatever it measures up on your loan balance for the 15-year, take a look at it. It may be the thing you want to do.
And if I've done my 12 months and decide, oh, okay, I can do this, I'll pay it off, and the mortgage company or the bank, whomever I got my mortgage through, because I just did it less than a year ago, says you can wrap those mortgage costs or refi costs into the loan. Should I do that?
Well, again, you know, it depends on what the goals are. Great question. It depends on what your goals are for your property. If you're going to hold those, or that property, I should say, that mortgage for long term, then should you, right? Because that extra that you're financing is month over month, year over year. If you can afford to pay for those costs, I would pay for those costs. Otherwise, rolling it in, no question, it makes that payment greater because you're financing more for the life of the loan. Does that make sense?
But if you, of course, wrap it in and then convert it to a 15, then maybe it's all a wash. And
Maybe
so
it is a wash. And so it absolutely run the numbers. Have your loan officer. I'd love to run the numbers for you. The other thing, Rick, is doing a no cost. They're starting to come back. Right. In other words, let the loan officer, let the mortgage company pick up the cost for doing that refinance. Take a look at it. It may just work.
Okay, well, that's good advice. And if you'd like to hear more advice from Nancy, feel free to reach out to her at the number on the screen. And I think next week we should talk about, does it matter where I get my mortgage from? And if so, what are those elements that I should look for? And, you know, because I might get a better rate from these people, but may never get it closed in time because of how they do their processing, things like that. So let's talk about that next week. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
See you next week. So one of the most important decisions you need to make is, are you going to sell the home by yourself in a for sale by owner or hire a real estate agent? And let's talk about what it takes to make that decision and what considerations you need to make when making that decision. So the first question I have is for Elizabeth. What are some of the pros of selling it by yourself under for sale by owner?
Are there any pros?
Are there any pros? How about you can save on commission?
It's penny wise and pound foolish. Yes, you don't have to pay your a listing agent. However, you have to pay the buyer's agent no matter what. I mean, and that buyer's agent is probably going to, you know, get their client a house for a lot less money because they know what they're doing. And this is a huge undertaking. It's a very big investment. And you often, if you're not a real estate agent, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to price it correctly, how to market it correctly. I mean, a sign in the lawn is not, wow. There's so much more that we do.
Is there such a thing as for sale by owner and still getting it in the MLS? How does that work? Or is that simply a different...
You can get it on Zillow as a for sale by owner. And again, you will save on that one small bit of commission, but you will probably be getting a lot less money for your home. And then you also have to look at all the legal implications. I mean, this is a big deal, and we guide our clients through every step of the way, right, ladies?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I think as soon as these for sale by owner clients put up a for sale by owner sign in their yard, that's an automatic indication to potential buyers. Oh, they can't afford a realtor. Let's try to lowball them. On top of not being able to have the exposure in the MLS to 48,000 plus agents, to know that their home is even available is huge. Yes, it can be on Zillow, but the MLS is really the primary tool that the buyer's agents turn to in terms of searches and that kind of thing. And then, yes, the legal implications. I mean, if you have a full-time job, don't bother trying to sell your home on the side for sale by owner, because it will occupy 6 to 8 weeks or more of your time. I've had this happen once or twice in my career, and both times the homeowner said, I will never do it again. I left $75,000 on the table. And the other one was she owned her own physical therapy business, and she literally had to put her business practically on hold. I mean, her health went downhill and everything, because the next 6 to 8 weeks was completely occupied by this. And she was so stressed out with the legal implications of this massive, trying to sell this $1 million plus home from a divorce situation. I don't think there's a whole lot of positive to it. And like Elizabeth said, while you save the commission of the listing agent, you still have to pay the agent who brings the buyers. So people don't realize that. They think, oh, I'm saving 6%. No, you're saving maybe 3%.
So, Carrie, if I'm doing it, I don't have the money. I just don't have the money to pay the commission because I bought at the top of the market. It's come down. And the only way I think I can sell it is by owner. Is that a plausible option?
Absolutely. Give it a shot. Unfortunately, many times for sale by owners ultimately turn to a real estate broker in the end anyways. I think it's beneficial, though, to at least have that conversation with a realtor if you are thinking you don't have enough equity in your home, because you might actually have enough equity to sell that property. So I think it's important to talk with the realtors, see about your home, see about the market, have them prepare you an estimated net proceeds. I've had clients that I've worked with that were going to go for sale by owner, and I actually netted them more after paying both sides of the commission, helping them through the process. So, give it a shot if you choose to, but that's, the ladies bring up excellent points. There's a lot of legal ramifications. This is a highly stressful transaction. And this is probably your largest financial transaction here that we're working with.
Interesting. And Lori, what are some of the other cons of potentially trying to sell it by yourself besides being stressed out?
Yeah, well, I think you ultimately do net less, like Carrie was saying. So, like I always tell sellers when they've consulted with me at an open house, or if they do talk to me and are thinking, I've actually had someone from an open house that called me up and said, hey, you inspired me. We're going to sell, but we're going to sell for sale by owner. And I said, well, if you have just a few minutes, I'd love to stop by and chat with you. And I tell people like that sellers, that I will more than cover my commission, and they will ultimately net more if they by using an agent, by that exposure in the MLS. And it's just peanuts what they're paying in commission compared to what they would get in a purchase price by using an agent.
So Elizabeth should be concerned more with the net proceeds than the cost.
People think that they're going to save so much money, but as Lori said, it's just pennies compared to the amount of money that they will make over it. So let's say you're selling something for $1 million. If you don't have an agent, you might get a whole lot less. Definitely the $30,000 that Coldwell Banker, that 3% is going to be so much less if you're than like netting another $100,000 on your home.
So it's just important to consider everything as well as the time.
Right. Right. I mean, we market the home in so many different ways. Coldwell Banker, as you know, does the YouTube advertising and the geo-targeted advertising. There's social media. There's so much that goes into marketing a home. Putting a sign on your yard and putting it on Zillow will definitely bring a few people in, but they're all going to be wanting to get a deal on you because they know you're representing yourself and you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. So it sounds like probably obviously the best way is to hire a professional to do this, but you may just need to take your chances if you want to. The other thing, Debbie, is a lot of people may still think it's 2022. And if I do for sale by owner, even, I'm just going to have people driving by and buying my house. Well, we're not in 22 anymore, correct? So timing makes a difference.
Correct. That's why if you're ever thinking about doing that, you should talk to an agent to find out what the market is like now, today. Because no, it's not the same. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. The other point is if you're doing a for sale by owner, you don't know who's coming to your home. You don't know if they're qualified. You don't know if they're, able to purchase the home. And, you could be taking time from work or whatever your schedule is to allow people to come in to see your house that are not even interested or qualified. So you've got to be careful about and figure out how you're going to handle something like that.
Good point. Good point, Debbie. I forgot to even mention that. All of us, when we put a sign in the yard, we have a showing company that vets every single agent that shows that home. And in this day and age, I think that's critical. I also think that you can't discount the fact that we have a built-in network within Coldwell Banker of 15 other offices across the Front Range. So if someone is transferring from Carrie's area in Fort Collins and she's looking, down in my area of Broomfield, Westminster, I mean, we are a wealth of resources and network situation.
Rick, I'd like to say one last thing,
Sure.
though. I think there's kind of a misconception with buyers and sellers both that we are walking away with this huge chunk of money. These things cost money. So all the advertising and the marketing and the exposure that we're doing, we pay those costs on the upfront of the property. So we're all in as far as we don't get compensated until the home sells. So we're using our funds to pay for all that advertising and marketing on the onset of listing your home. So we want to make sure we're in a real team effort here with the seller and understand that there's costs associated. And if I think people lined out and saw exactly what everything costs for us to adequately market and advertise your home for sale, they would realize that it's not as significant as it may come across originally.
It's a good point. And on this rental report, Greg Batchelor from Real Property Management is here to tell us and advise us on what to consider relative to renting a property, what you should look out for. Do you want a home? Do you want a condo? Those sorts of things. So, Greg, welcome.
Thanks, Rick. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So what's the number one thing to consider?
Yeah, so there was a great piece of advice when I first got my real estate license 2 decades ago. There was a great piece of advice that I was given then, which still applies today. It's called the 3-2-1 principle. And here's what that 3-2-1 principle looks like. Minimum of 3 bedrooms, minimum of 2 baths, minimum of 1 really good school district. So here's how that plays out. When most people are looking to rent, whether that be a single family home, townhome, condo, apartment, whatever that's going to look like, most people are looking for bedrooms that have at least 3 and then the 2 bath and a 1 good school district. Here's where that plays out. A lot of people don't like having to share the bathroom with other friends, with the roommates, even family members, etc. So the 2 baths, that's pivotal. Then the school district, that's an integral piece. So people place more of a value on how the school district is doing more and more all the time. And so having those components are good every single time. And so when you've got the 3-2-1, you have a good foundation to move off of. Now, if you're considering a 1-bedroom condo or a 1-bedroom apartment or something like that, some folks just want the privacy of their own place. Mm-hmm. They're moving here from out of state. They're coming to Colorado. They're here for the first time. They want to rent for a year before they become buyers. They want their own place. And so they don't necessarily need that 2nd bathroom. 3 bedrooms is far too many, et cetera. And so they're perfectly good with that 1 bedroom, 1 bath. But in general, 3-2-1 worked 20 years ago. It's still a good principle 20 years later.
I'm sure, like all other axioms or within real estate, location is probably important for somebody to consider.
Huge piece. Yeah, and we're watching, Rick, more and more people move to the outskirts or
Okay.
look to the outskirts of town. Obviously, proximity to job is pivotal. You don't want to have to drive 2 hours each way for your job. And so where you live is oftentimes predicated on where you're working.
And of course, affordability. What can you afford?
Absolutely. And you know what? That is becoming more of a challenge all the time. There's been recent surveys out that talk about the average amount of rent that Denver area folks, for instance, or Front Range folks, for instance, are spending relative to their entire paycheck. And it's very, very high right now. And so that becomes a big piece. Fortunately, gasoline prices have remained fairly consistent. They haven't shot to $5 a gallon or something crazy like that. And so people can afford to live a little bit more on the outskirts of town and then commute into where their jobs are.
But even with a condo, like if you're buying a home, you probably want to consider, if gas prices go up, what does that mean? And of course, then one option might be to live close to light rail. And therefore, even if you're not right near light rail, if you're only driving a mile or two to get to light rail, that could also be a benefit.
Absolutely. It's a huge benefit, Rick. And there are a lot of folks that will make housing decisions, whether that's on the buy-sell side, whether that's on the rental side. They will make decisions based on where that light rail is or a bus line or something of that nature. Because even if you do have to drive a little bit and then take a light rail to where ultimately you're going, that's less costly than it would be if you had to drive the entire way. A lot of folks are making those decisions, especially in an economy where things are tightening, things are squeezing. We're watching it day in and day out.
Well, that sounds like great information. And next week, why don't we talk about trends and where you're seeing with rental rates, whether you're looking to rent your home, your condo, or whether you're looking to be a renter yourself. Why don't we talk about that on next week's show?
That sounds great, Rick. Looking forward to it already.
All right. Thanks again for your time. And if you want to get a hold of Greg, you can reach out to him or his team at the number here on the screen. And once again, thanks, Greg. And we have one great home for sale here on the Pro Show this week, and it is Debbie Haning's listing. Debbie, tell us about this home located at 258 Sylvester Place in Highlands Ranch.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to show you this amazing home. It is a 4-bedroom home and with a very, very large basement that's only partially finished, so you could put another 2 bedrooms and a family room and whatever. But the owners of this home who are selling it have almost redone everything. The kitchen is all new appliances, new countertops, new light fixtures, you name it, and they've done it. The home has been repainted. They've completely updated the garden area. It is one of the most private, comfortable, relaxing yard that I've seen in a while. And you can see, and Rick, you mentioned the really cool sink that they had in the powder room.
Yep.
That's worth a trip. But I absolutely love this home, and everyone who has seen it is just in love with it.
There's that huge basement that still leaves room for more expansion, and
exactly,
and the amazing backyard, a water feature.
Mm-hmm, a water feature, and they have bluebirds that come there, which I don't have, and I don't live that far from them, so something attracts them. But
yeah,
it is absolutely an amazing home. I'm proud to have this listing.
This was a great home to photograph, and if you'd like to see it, feel free to reach out to Debbie. And I appreciate you bringing it to the show today. Thanks, Debbie. And we've had another great show this week. I appreciate everyone here for being on the show and for you sitting through and listening to the great advice these ladies have to offer. They have a lot more information to give you. Feel free to reach out to them at the numbers here on the screen. And in addition to that, you can check out other advice they've given on previous pro shows at theproshow.com, or check it out on your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts. I appreciate you being with us again this week, everyone. And thanks again. We'll see you next week.